All right, it's the end of the session. I'm here with my new best friend, Buffy, and this is Buffy's roadmap to success. Now, I'm going to go over kind of a summary of what we went over in the session, but the Guardian was talking, we were talking about the kennel a little bit, and I'm going to go over those tips so they're right at the top of this video. Yes, that could be celebrating putting your chin down. For kennel games, I would have a word. Does she have a word that means to go to the kennel? Come up with a fun place. Hawaii, Malibu. During Harry Potter era, everybody was naming their dog kennel Hogwarts, whatever it is. So come up with, Maui. So you go over, show her you got a treat. Door of the kennel's open. Say Maui and toss the treat in the kennel. Looks like you have a lot of towels in there, so make sure you only don't have a lot of stuff so it's not going to get hidden. So you say Maui first. Remember, the cue comes first. Then you toss it in the kennel. When she steps all four paws in the kennel, you say yes. She licks up the treat. Let her exit. And do that maybe 5 or 10 different times. And eventually start doing it from a little bit further away. Eventually you want to flip it where you want to say Maui and point towards it. She goes in there, yes. She goes in there, then you say yes after she goes in there, and you go and give her a treat. At first we're throwing the treat to entice her to go in there, but eventually we want the treat to come after she does the action. But in the learning stages, now we're luring by tossing a treat in there. All right, so one of the things I told the Guardian to do is look for ways to incorporate some rules and structure. So a nice way is if Buffy is in the kennel, she comes home and Buffy's all excited. She wants to run around the house as soon as she gets out. But that's an eruption of excitement. And a lot of us, we confuse excitement for happiness when it comes to dogs. Don't get me wrong, a dog can be excited and happy at the same time. But a lot of times, just like us, dogs are going to make mistakes if they're overly stimulated, overexcited. And because dogs open their mouth to breathe heavy, we see that as a smile. We think the dog's happy when we're really just getting them more and more excited. So helping dogs practice impulse control at times they want to do things and asking them to show a little obedience first before they get them, that's called the Premack principle. A less desirable behavior earns me a more desirable behavior. In the kennel case, I would like her to understand that when I come to the kennel and tell you to sit, as soon as you sit, that is what causes the door to open. Now, we might need to do some training, though, to get there. And the training, first stage is I would toss the treats in and out like I talked about earlier until you can eventually say Maui or whatever the word is. Snuggles, yes, there we go. And then we can get her to go to the kennel on cue and then give her the treat afterwards. Next thing I would do is I would put her in the kennel, close the door, and then leave the, do something to get her to stand up. So if you have to leave the room. As soon as she stands up, walk back to the kennel, tell her to sit one time. If she sits, say yes, and then give her a treat. Don't open the kennel door, just give her a treat. You weren't leaving anywhere, you were here. So it helps her understand, it's easier for me to sit. I'm not super excited. I haven't been pent up in her for an hour. And if she doesn't sit, leave the room, walk back in, and tell her to sit again. So you're only going to tell her one time. And when she sits, say yes and give her that treat. And you want to practice this stage until eventually you say sit, and she sits down right away. And so then you're going to tell her to sit and then give her the treat. Now that's to prepare her for sitting before you open the door. Those are activities that will work in concert later, but right now we're practicing them independently. And again, so you put her in the kennel, close the door, tell her to sit, and she sits. This next stage for this is after she sits, I would reach down. Let's say this is the latch of the kennel door. So kind of a principle of what we did above in the counter conditioning, we got to go in steps. So I tell her to sit, she sits. That means because she sat, now I can start the process of letting her out of the kennel. We think of opening the door as just one step. We can make that into multiple steps. So I tell her to sit, she sits. I reach a little bit, I pull my arm back, and I could give her a treat. I don't want to get her too excited. Sometimes I'll just pull my arm back, reach a little bit further, reach further, and like when I get to jiggling it, that might get her to get up because she's excited and coming out. So I probably would do this with treats. So tell her, she sits, I say yes, and then I reach halfway, pull my arm back, yes, give her a treat. Repeat that 2 or 3 times, then I reach 3/4 of the way, pull back, but I'm not even touching the handle. Eventually I'm touching it, but not jiggling it. Give her a treat, do that 3 times. Then I jiggle it just a little bit. If she stays in a sit, I give her a treat. Eventually I jiggle a little harder, give her a treat. Eventually it's like slamming, going crazy. And eventually you're lifting the latch up. You're lifting the latch and moving it over to the side a little bit, but not opening it. So we're doing all the things that are going to open the door, but we're doing it very progressively in small steps. And eventually it gets to a point where you come home, tell her to sit, she sits, you go and open the door, and then she just sits there with the door open waiting. And then I would come up with an exit cue and call it like freedom Or Disneyland or whatever is touch a treat to her nose and then toss it right outside the kennel. If she steps out, you say yes, and then she licks up the treat. So now we've conditioned and trained her that the way to exit the kennel, instead of going crazy and barking and showing excitement, is sit quietly. And eventually that becomes a Premack principle. Premack principle means a less desirable behavior earns me more desirable behavior. There can't be treats involved. The training part that I was showing you, just talking about, is to just condition her. But eventually we come home, she says sit. If she sits, then we say yes, and then open the door, and then say Disneyland or whatever it is, and she gets out of the deal. And if she wants to run around, that's okay. But again, it's a nice way to incorporate a little impulse control. Now, we started off the session by going over marker words. I have a video on marker words. I'll have it linked above, but if you have any questions on that, let me know. By the time you see this, I'm hoping that you've already gone through your house and loaded. So remember, you're going to use kibble or small treats. And when it comes to treats, you want to use the smallest treat you can get away with and the lowest value you can get away with. But if it's so small or so low value she doesn't respond, bump it up a little bit, but don't overpay. I was using the tricky trainers, and I was divvying them up into each piece into 8 little chunks. Say yes, give her a treat, take a couple steps, yes, give her a treat. We want to do it throughout your whole house. And I usually use about 15 to 30 treats, depending on the size of the house. Do this on 6 different occasions over the course of 2 days, and then you're done loading the word. I would do the same thing with the clicker. Now, first time you click, don't click next to her. That might startle her. So put it behind your back, click, and give her a treat. Take a couple steps, click, give her a treat. Same exact principle. Eventually, you can hold the click out here, but a lot of people, for some reason, put it right next to their dog's ear, and it startles them. But the click and yes are the same thing. The clicker is better, but we don't always have access to our clicker. So when you're out on walks, I would have a clicker. When you're doing the find it game in the grass I talked about, every time she licks up a treat, click. Every time she looks at you, click. When you're looking at other dogs, engage, disengage. She looks at a dog, click. It works better in more distracting environments. But in the house, if you're celebrating, she comes and sits to you, does this, just yes, and just give her a pat. All right, now I'd also like you to load the sound. Now the sound that we were working on is saying beep 3 times in a high pitch. I don't want to say it now, I don't want to disturb her. So you're gonna do the same thing. So I would load first the marker word, get that done maybe today and tomorrow. And then tomorrow and the next day you're doing the clicker. And the day after that you're doing the beep, 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 treat, beep, 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 treat. And so that's gonna set up that positive interrupter lesson. So if she, and then we're gonna use that with hand targeting. We'll talk about hand, so that's one of the other lessons we went over. If you can't remember how to do the hand chop, let me know. Now make sure when you're doing the hand chop, your hand is empty always, and you leave your hand there. And you were kind of going like this at times and like this at times. So chop and keep your hand about this angle, and so you could put a treat there and it would stay there. So you're only saying yes when she touches her nose to your hand. And then I like to go righty, lefty, moving further and further and further away. And this is also an alternative recall. Come, I'm not going to come to you. If I come to you, I can't yell at the squirrel. Boop, I'll come and show my nose on your hand. It's the same thing, but we're saying it through different guise. Mm-hmm. So eventually we would use the beep, beep, beep and the hand targeting for your positive interrupter lesson. And so let's say she's sniffing the trash. If I say no, that causes her to get attention. That makes her more likely to get in the trash in the future, even if it stops her now. So instead what we do is we say the beep sound 3 times and she gets interested and looks. And now we've cultivated a strong hand targeting. We say boop, she runs over across her and touches her nose to her hand. We have now positively interrupted her from getting in the trash. Barking is a little bit harder. Sometimes you'll be able to do it, sometimes you won't. But sniffing, chewing your shoes or whatever it is. The positive interrupter works better before the dog does the action than once they've started. So once she starts barking, it'll be a little harder, but if she hears a sound that goes like this, and you say beep, 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 and boop, she might run over there for that. Now, we went over hand targeting to help you practice the timing of it, and also to when to introduce the cue. Remember, there's 4 components to a cue. There's the cue, sit, the command, the direction. There's the action, the dog sitting. The third part is saying yes, so she knows that she did what we want, or we could click. And the 4th part is giving her the reward, which is a pet or a treat. But when we're teaching dogs, remember, we do the first step last. We don't say sit. We just lure the dog into a sit until it's easy to lure them into a sit. And then we say yes every time they achieve it. And after a while, we don't introduce the cue unless we're 90% certain. When I say sit, she's going to sit the first time. Do not repeat it. The more you say it, the less you mean it. Mm-hmm. And so that might mean the environment's too distracting, or I haven't properly taught the dog the exercise. And one of the things I'd like you to do is make a list of all the official cues that she knows. I know she knows sit, or she's going to be learning down. So whatever the word is you're going to use for that. Boop is touch now. Come up with a word that means to eat your food. Come here. So that way you're not saying come here, over here, here, girl. We make it harder for dogs by using a lot of vocabulary. So using one word consistently makes it easier. All right, we went over the celebrate game. Celebrating is the easiest thing. I've done it a couple times in this video already. We wait for the dog to do the desired behavior without any influence from us whatsoever. I didn't tell her to put her chin up here, but every time she did, I said yes, and I petted her. And that's one of the things we teach service dogs. Put your chin here and then press down when people are having a panic attack. It teaches me I should focus on the dog. So that's actually a little bit of a principle called shaping. Shaping means we're not influencing the dog. We're just waiting for the dog to stumble into the thing we want. And in concert with the instant they do it, we say the marker word and pet them. But we're not telling them what to do. So celebrating is basically just every time your dog comes to you, yes and pet. Every time she sits, yes and pet. Lays down, drops things, eats her food, drops, does a number 2 outside. Whatever it is, anything that's desirable. Mark and reward. A lot of times people are like, oh, gotta mark everything. After a while, you won't even think about it. Dog walks up, you say yes, pet her on her chin, and keep on talking. You won't even think about it. But now every time you do this, you build her confidence. You help her practice listening to you. You help her practice basic obedience. It really becomes a gift, and you won't even be aware of it. Every time you pet your dog, it becomes a micro dog training session. Now, the flip side of that is the manners. She does kind of nudge you for attention. When she does it, she's telling you what to do. Is it wrong to tell you to pet or to ask for pets? No, it's not a problem. But if she's telling you what to do and you do it, then that creates a little bit of a confusion about the leader-follower dynamic. So when she nudges you, I'd like you to ask her to sit or lay down or touch or do something that she knows how to do. You're only going to ask her one time. If she does it, then you say yes and pet her. If she doesn't want to do it, then you just go back to doing whatever it was you were doing before. You are not going to give her extra attention. A lot of people actually train their dogs to not listen right away. So if I say sit and you don't sit, you'll say sit 24 more times. I get 25 times the attention by not listening to than if I listen. So remember, it's very powerful playing hard to get. So if you say sit, she doesn't sit, go find something else to do. No punishment, but there's no reward for her either. All right, we also went over exercise. I would get the snuffle mat. If you want to get the one that I like, it's the Runda. I think it's R-U-N-D-A or R-H-U-N-D-A. It's gray, and the one that's her size is going to be like a circular, like a pizza size. I flip it over upside down, I flip it back up, and just waterfall her treats on there. And then she's got a hunt form. That's like a short walk. Now, I also went over the bucket game with you. If I don't link it above and you need a lesson, let me know. But that's one where we move it 5 times at this level, this level, this level, then this level. And that's a wonderful impulse control game. We also went over, you can try to play tug of war with her. She's got a toy. Let's see if she likes playing it. Some dogs like to do that. If she doesn't, she drops it or starts getting upset, then just, you can ignore that. But we look for different creative ways of exercising her. We also went over cookie in the corner. That was the one where we're throwing the treats against the hearth. So that's the find it game as well that I'd like you to do on walks. So the cookie in the corner, I have a video for that. I can link that. Let me know if you want it. But again, we're just going to say find it. Remember, the cue always comes first. Then we throw a treat. When she looks it up, we say yes. And then we say here. And she comes back to us. We say yes and give her a second treat. Then we throw 2 treats, 3, 4, 5. Eventually, you can leave treats in that area and just motion and say, find it, and point in that area. She goes and sniffs around looking for those treats. Great way to drain some energy. Speaking of which, before I go in, let me buttress that. I would also like you to do the find it game on walks. She does not like big dogs. Now, the engage-disengage game is how you can fix that. But remember, pillar 1 is helping her avoid practicing the unwanted behaviors. So every block from now on, I want you to have treats with you. This is the mini treat pouch from PetSafe. Get one of these, load it up with treats, and cut it up into little tiny pieces for her. So go to every block, you're going to find a pass or grass when there's nobody around. There's no reason to do it. Practice is not an emergency. Emergency should not be the time to practice. So touch her treat to her nose and say, find it, and just toss it like 6 inches in front of her on the grass. She's going to go root around for it. When she finds it, and you start nibbling, you say yes. She looks at you, then toss another one, maybe about a foot into the grass. She's got to go find that one. Make sure she's looking at you. Don't toss it over her head. So if this is her head, I don't want to toss it this way. She won't be able to track that. So if I want to toss it this way, I'm going to touch a treat to her lips, and I'm going to lure her, and then I'm going to throw it when she's looking in that direction. So at first, I just drop one about 6 inches in front, say yes when she find it, toss, yes when she gets it. Then when she's looking, I throw one maybe about a foot, yes when she gets that, find it, toss, yes, when she gets it. Then do that next one about 3 feet, and then about 5 feet. We just moved her now 11 feet away from the street, searching the ground, looking for these treats in grass, which makes it a little bit more difficult. So if you do this every block, she's like, okay, my mom's a weirdo. She just does this for no reason now. But now when you see a big dog that you know she's going to react to, you see it before and you start playing this game, she's got her back turned to that other dog, and that other dog passes by, and she didn't practice bark at them and get reactive. So it's a nice way to help her avoid practicing the unwanted behaviors. Let me see, what else did we go over? Oh yeah, please, yeah. The other thing is, I was talking about earlier, is the Omega Paw Tricky Trainer Treat Ball. That'd be something that you can have when guests come over. They have other treat dispensing toys and puzzles. I just like the ones that are like balls or wobble. I don't like the ones that are puzzles because most dogs just knock everything off. Yes. So I'm celebrating putting her chin there. And if I can recognize that she's about to do it, I would say cuddles right before she did that. And then she puts her chin there, I say yes and pet her. So when you have friends come over, if you have your friends load up the Tricky Trainer Treat Ball, you have to roll it for her first couple times, or have your friends load up the Snuffle Mat or whatever it is. Now she's like liking those folks. Now she does like to bark at people who come through the door. So what I do for that is I like to use that licking trick with peanut butter or cream cheese. So I would have her on her harness, on her leash over here. Tell your friend or whoever it is just to open the door, have a spoon with this cream cheese on it, and as soon as you see her, she's about the door, you hold it here. She's looking at the door while she's licking. This is incompatible behavior. She's looking at them and she's looking at them as they come in the house. Hopefully she continues licking without barking at them. And when they come in, maybe you give them a handful of treats, and as soon as they get the spoon's about to be done, they start throwing treats on the ground. Now, it seems like we're just spoiling her, but what are we doing? We're helping her practice a different behavior. Instead of barking when you see people at the door, which is a habit now for her, now we're arranging it. We are cheating. Yes, I know. Our friend is going to text us when they get here. We have the spoon. It's been in the freezer, so it's frozen. And we're going to let her start licking on it before the person comes to the door. And then we're going to talk to everybody on earbuds and say, all right, come on in. She's licking, licking, licking as they come in. So now we're having her practice. People come in the door. She doesn't bark at them. She's licking. And after about 2 or 3 months, that becomes the new habit. Now, in the meantime, when people are coming over, try to avoid having her out so she can bark and charge at the door. But that's a nice little way that you can fix that barking problem. We also went over the door counter conditioning, and that's basically a variant of the video above. But what you're going to do is basically just record the audio of the security alarm, the door opening, the door handle jiggling, and then basically you could do the same thing. You could have Dad doing what I was doing, and so Dad, she's over here with Dad, and then you go over there and jiggle the handle or open the door a little bit, and he gives her a treat, provided she doesn't respond. And after a while, you desensitize her to the point where she's like, you can leave, and somebody's going to give me a treat, so I don't mind it so much. Remember, when you come and go, don't make a big deal of it. Don't tell her, oh, Buffy, I'm going to be back in an hour. You'll be okay. Or when you come home, don't make a big deal out of it because that erases that emotions. It's nice. I know we like it when we come home and our dogs are excited. But if you're trying to calm their behavior down, trying to wait for the, yes, again, trying to teach her to snuggle. But if we're trying to modify the behavior, we want to kind of help them do it in a calm and balanced state of mind first. On walks, I'd like you to have, yes, I know, she's grumbling a little bit. So on walks, I'd like you to have a treat out in your hand. Now, if I have the dog, I usually have this on whatever side, and then my other hand, I might have the leash and the clicker together. So as soon as she looks at another dog, I click, that causes her to turn around, and I give her that treat. Can you be bothered to take that one? Yes. And then I grab another treat. I don't want to reach for it. I want to have the treat in my hand. So every time she looks up at you on a walk, you say yes or click and hold the treat out. After a while, she's going to start checking in. Treats are like $100 bills to dogs. I don't know about you, but if somebody's handing me $100 bills, I don't walk away. I just wait there until they're done handing me $100 bills. So after a while, every couple of steps, she looks in at you. Every time she looks in at you, you're becoming more important and more powerful, and the easier for you to redirect her. Let me see. What else do we go over? Is there anything else you want me to cover? Well, she's a good dog. Now, if we do need to work on the reactivity with other dogs, let me know. But remember, try to find a place where you can practice that in a big outdoor area. Hopefully, I have engage, disengage linked above. If I don't, shoot me a text. Hey, David, link the engage, disengage game so I can practice that. And try to do that like, once or twice a week so you're countering the practice of the other stuff. All right, well, this is my buddy Buffy, the Vampire Slayer Chihuahua Pit Bull mix, and this is her roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.